Since I started my self-improvement journey, I've had to learn a lot of new skills, whether that's learning how to work out in the gym, learning how to meal prep and count calories, or even learning how to make these YouTube videos. And during this time, I've read about and I've implemented a few different techniques which have really helped me, not just in terms of staying consistent and sticking to learning the skill, but also helping me learn that skill faster. So I thought I would just share some of these techniques with you today in the hope that next time you're learning a skill, maybe you can implement some of these and it will help you out. So the first technique which has really helped is to get stuck in immediately, start immediately. I think back to when I've learnt skills in the past, and a big barrier for me was just getting started. I would spend so much time learning about how I should learn the skill that I wouldn't just get going. I think about this YouTube channel, for example. It took me months and months before I actually pulled the trigger and made the first video. I was researching what type of camera I should use, how I should edit it, audience retention and all that sort of stuff. Whereas in actual fact, if I had just jumped in and made that first video earlier, I would have learnt a lot more and I would be further along my journey now. There's a very popular principle in business called the 70-20-10 principle. And this basically says that you get 70% of your experience from hands-on learning, 20% from mentorships and from feedback, and only 10% from actually formal learning like reading books. I think this is extremely true outside of business as well, especially when it comes to learning a new skill. The sooner that you can get stuck in and start learning this skill, the sooner you can start to get feedback on what are your strengths and weaknesses, what are the areas of that skill you need to improve and work harder on, what are some of the areas where you're already pretty good and don't need to practice as much. And also, the sooner you can jump in, the sooner you can start to use this skill in real-world situations, which again just makes the skill feel more familiar, helps it sink in further. So whatever the new skill you're learning is, the sooner that you can get stuck in, even if it's just a couple of minutes every couple of days, the better. Now, if you're having difficulty taking that first step, I would recommend you look at something called the 2-minute rule. And this is basically something where you allow yourself to only practice for 2 minutes. And at the end of those 2 minutes, if you don't want to practice anymore, you don't have to, and that's absolutely fine. But what normally happens is when you finish those 2 minutes, you actually do want to keep practicing, and you end up practicing for half an hour or an hour. It's like a little mind trick that you can play on yourself to get over that initial hurdle and just get going. The second technique which has really helped is to track your progress. I think that if you're learning a new skill, you have to track your progress, because not only does this help you visualize your progress, visualize how well you're doing, but again, it helps you highlight those strengths and weaknesses. Now, obviously, it's going to be different for every skill you're learning, but let's say you're learning guitar. Maybe you track your progress by how many new songs you learn each week, or maybe it's the speed that you can play, or how many hours you put into practice each week. Whatever it is, try and find a way that you can track your progress when learning a new skill. What you can also do when you track your progress is to take your overall progress and break it down into smaller milestones. And then that way, each time you hit one of these milestones, you can reward yourself. Now, not only will this give you confidence and make you feel good about progressing, but getting these rewards will also make you feel good so that you stick at learning this skill. You'll be more consistent. So jump straight in, track your progress. And the third technique, which is a little bit counterintuitive, is to focus on the downtime. So if you're like me, when you're learning a skill, it gets really frustrating when you're 5 hours into a practice session and you've hit a brick wall, you just can't progress past this barrier. But I normally find that if I take a break and come back to it the next day, I get past that barrier a lot faster. It's almost as if my brain is still learning that skill even in the downtime. And I remember I watched a documentary about this a few years ago where they took people who were learning to ski, and these people learnt throughout the day, and then when they slept, they linked up their brains to brain monitors to measure their brain activity. And then the next morning, when they got up and they learnt to ski again, they were better than the previous day. The conclusion from the documentary was that while we sleep, our brains continue to work on that skill and improve. So there's actually science behind the idea of breaking up your practice sessions into smaller chunks and chipping away at that skill over time. So there we go, guys. 3 simple techniques that you can implement to help you learn skills faster and stay consistent with those skills. I really hope that was useful, and whatever the new skill is that you're learning, best of luck. I will see you in the next video.